love
All right.
when you press the button.
I'm live. We're live.
Whoa,
They heard your
already?
song. I think it was great. I'm glad that
Thanks.
got in.
It's an original.
I like it when you push the button. Get the show on the road.
Oh yeah, nice.
Someone could fill that out.
Oh yeah.
Who was the person who wrote a really good song for us a long time ago, but then just recently reminded me of it, and I sent it to you?
It was good. I remember
Yeah.
it was to Sam Smith, "Stay With Me,"
Right.
and there's a funny my favorite part was "Oh she." That's terrible.
Well, anyway, anyone
I feel
here?
like it was someone
by the way?
named Matthew or Ryan, but
Yeah, okay.
odds are just in that favor.
Yeah, very popular names.
Okay.
You should hear the names of the kids in my daughter's daycare. These parents are insane. I don't know. It's pretty wild.
Okay.
I guess you're a teacher, so I guess you hear them all now.
Well, that could have gone two ways. And I don't think you would have meant it. It's none of them. It depends what ethnicity you're speaking
no,
of, right?
I'm just I'm talking just white people
Yeah.
with bonkers. There's a Cosmo, which to me is I just think of
No.
Cosmo Kramer.
Oh,
And it's
do
how did
they
you
know
name your kid?
Seinfeld exists?
I don't know, but there's a kid named Cosmo. It's wild.
I've heard some wild ones. And I'm trying to think. There's one like Cosmo. Oh, there's a name. Okay, a name that's everywhere. And sorry, not to shade anybody who's used this name because it seems really common.
Okay,
But I've met 3 Beckhams in the last 6 months.
like a first name Beckham.
Beckham first
And
name.
it's for sure only because that soccer player.
Well, I don't know. I don't know why. But what else are you
Yeah.
ever going to think? It's you're named after David Beckham. That's
Yeah.
it. It's just there's when there's only one path to understanding the name. And then I made a classic dad joke the other day where my
Let's hear
niece
it.
was telling me about my nephew had a friend named Hunter over, and I said, "Is his last name Gatherer?" He didn't get it. He's 6.
There's a hunter on Survivor this season.
Yeah, I think I'm an episode behind. Just one.
Okay. Well, he's very good at challenges.
He builds them.
Yeah.
He's crazy.
There was so I guess in the one you haven't seen yet, anyway, whatever. He's good. I'm very impressed by this person.
I guess what you had in
Spoiler.
in the one you haven't seen yet. Let me tell you what happens.
Well, it's not. Anyway, don't worry. Honestly, you can skip this episode. Okay. Anyway.
Oh,
That's
that
a whole
actually
other-
makes me want to feel like I want to just get the short, the really short cut.
Honestly, if you're a busy person, I don't want to be okay. If you're a busy person, and you're trying to cut time. I think this is the episode to consider cutting.
Wow.
But
Wait, was it bad? Was it a bad
I think
episode?
so. I think so.
Oh,
Not
is it-
bad. I like Survivor, so it's I like every episode. But for Survivor, it was bad.
do your
in my opinion.
podcasts agree that it was a bad episode?
I think yeah. I think in general, that's been the sentiment. But anyhow, okay. Let's talk about hockey here. Thanks, Sam's here, so I think that's quorum. Let's do this.
Hey, Sam.
Sup, Sam. All right. So Brian, we'll start with the drops, and then we'll go to my content, and then we'll knock this out.
Start out with So I did a
And I-
late I did a late pivot on the drops.
Okay.
Just
say
I'm still
Oh,
working through, but it's okay. It's gonna be fine.
Okay, and we'll just do one part. We won't do 2 parts, and I'll do ad breaks every half hour. And
Yeah.
that's what we'll do.
That's so perfect.
Okay, and it's 8:30, so it'll be really easy to know when to do the ad breaks. Let's do it. What's my joke? Hosted by 2 guys who are both going to the semifinals of our consolation playoffs. Is that true, Brian?
It is. We both.
All right.
Well, I had a bye.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, it's still true. You could say that as your brag.
I definitely will.
Brian, I'll save this for the show.
What?
It's probably annoying for me to be just complaining about how awesome my team is doing and how I deserve
know.
to
No,
be
say it on the show.
Okay.
It's good.
But
It's
raises my cachet.
yeah.
Probably
it's
the people in my
it's
division think I'm
credibility.
a whiny asshole, but
Whoa.
sore loser. I don't want to be a sore loser.
Thank you for.
I'll say that
editing.
on the show also.
Okay. Just say it. Has the show begun, Elon?
I'm doing it. Yeah. Oh, that was I don't really want to yell today. I don't know if I don't have it in me. All right. Yeah, yes. Welcome everybody to another episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast, the longest running fantasy hockey podcast in the world, hosted by two guys who have officially clinched the semifinals of our consolation playoffs. I'm your host, Elon Dabrowski, and with me to break down this past week of NHL action, super stoked to cover all of this because it feels like such high stakes right now. We're all in our fantasy playoffs. It's the fantasy hockey robot, the poop prognostication, the IPP MVP himself, Brian Com. Brian, how's it going?
Hey, I'm good. I'm feeling great. I coasted. I had a nice, relaxing week last week, made moves at my leisure while I enjoyed a bye, which is one valid way to get to the next round of a consolation or any kind of playoff situation. You did it the hard way, though.
Not to brag, it wasn't that hard. Yeah, I did have to do a quarterfinals matchup, but I crushed it, Brian. In the couple, just, I don't know, for people in the couple, you'll know, I'm like pacing for 336 points this week. I'm looking at the championship playoffs. I would have dusted any of those teams, just like I dusted them all season and in total points. But hey, that's head to head. I don't want to come off like a sore loser here, but at least I'm going to try to come in seventh place by winning these consolation playoffs. So I'm having fun, and I'm especially excited, Brian, to chat with you. I got a huge slate of topics here, but then we had Shams drop a question in our Discord. I was like, oh, give me some topics if anyone wants me to talk about anything. I was expecting someone to be like, oh, is Evander Kane like going to bounce back? Like Victor. Oh, like Lewis suggested, or but then Shams was just like, tell me all the players above 90% rostered in Kakufel who are droppable going into this tough schedule week, which is like, that could be a whole show, but I figured we could probably handle it. So Brian, I think we'll just start with that, and then after that we'll get into the content that I've prepared of the players that I found interesting recently. Of course, before we get into everything, I'll just mention that Keeping Karlsson, proudly presented by DobberHockey.com, super awesome site. Check out the articles. Frozen Tools is the most amazing place to check out all your stats and data. But with that, Brian, the Keeping Karlsson is also proudly presented by our listeners. Thank you so much for listening this deep in the season. I'm really excited to be able to record fantasy hockey podcasts and have people actually listen to them. It's been a great joy of my life. And Brian, I'm stoked for this episode, like I said. So why don't we get into it? Yeah. So if you listen to Matchup Maximizer that I recorded last night, next week is like a wild week for fantasy. Like, I don't know if this is actually good or bad. I'm still kind of debating in my head, but basically, pretty much it's like Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday are crazy busy, and then there's barely any games on the other days. So we're all just going to be benching people on those busy days, and there's not too much wiggle room to like stream people out to get like lots of games. Like the best you could get is 2 off-day games from either Vancouver or Buffalo, and I'm sure all those teams have been picked dry in a lot of serious leagues. So I don't know if this is like good because it's like, okay, this is just going to be the best team wins kind of thing and not so much about streaming, or if it's bad because we're all going to be so frustrated that it won't be best team wins. It's going to be best sit-start decision maker wins, which is so luck, that you'll have some hat tricks on your bench, and that's why you'll lose, and you'll just tear your hair out that you made the wrong sit-start decision, even though you actually did build a good team. But anyways, that's just more of a philosophical question. The point is, there are going to be some good players dropped probably because, like, let's say if you have an open goalie spot on a Thursday and you're benching 3 skaters, the smart move would be to bench a skater, but you may have a good team. You don't want to, I should say you should drop a skater, and it might be tough to make those drops. So, Brian, the question came in. Who are some players who are rostered in the majority of couple divisions that you are giving permission to drop going into this busy week? And keep in mind, there's still a finals coming up, so you don't want to make the wrong drop. Make it to the finals and have your opponent add this player who's going to dust you. So you can't just drop anybody. So what do you think, pal?
Well, dust is already the word of the episode. So thanks for making that clear from the outset. And
put it in the title.
From dust to dust to Dustin Penner.
Okay.
We'll figure something out by the end of the episode. But yeah, it's a tough week to play, and I've made up. Really, it's just two simple rules here for trying to figure out if you can drop somebody who's good but isn't going to be playing a whole lot for you this week because they're just at the bottom of your roster and there's no room for them in the lineup. The first rule is if they're not top line or top power play, let me say that again because I want to be really clear. If they're not top line and top power play, then you have to at least consider letting them go. And I've gathered a few edge cases here who aren't top line, top power play, but you might want to consider holding. And the other rule is I would look ahead to the following week. And you don't want to get too far ahead of yourself, but if you're keeping someone who's going to play one game or even 0 games for you this week, if their schedule also kind of stinks next week. Next week is a little lighter on the heavier days I've found. Like I think like at least for my own rosters, I'm not as full on the busy nights. Like the busy nights are still Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. And I think Sunday's actually busy too. Elon's, you can do the math and tell me exactly what would qualify in matchup maximizer. But it seems like there's a little more roster room to play with on the
Definitely.
busy nights. Does that track with you?
I mean, yeah, I mean, I could bring it up right now and see that on the following weeks, we're talking April 1st to April 7th. There's the Tuesday, there's only 16 teams playing. The Thursdays, there's 18 teams playing. And then the Saturday is 22. So that's still a lot of teams not playing, even on the busiest day of the week, which is the Saturday. So yeah, I definitely agree with you. On the flip side, like Sunday has 18 teams playing, which is kind of like, but usually I say 20 teams playing is like my cutoff for like you're likely or unlikely to be able to fit people in your roster. So I'd agree with you. You're like a team playing 4 games next week, there's a good chance you'll be able to get all 4 of those games depending on how your roster is constructed. So yeah, very different from this upcoming week where you're just stacked on Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and no one's playing on the other days at all.
Yeah, so after making that first determination, doing that first round of cuts based on who's not on top line and top power play, then take a peek at the next week's schedule and see, like, if, for example, I dropped Igor Sharangovich a couple days ago. As amazing as he's been, he would have had 0 games played for me this week, and next week the Flames play 3 times on the busy days. So I don't need that, and I can go for it after if I want to try and get Sharangovich back, or maybe get someone else like him. Another example of a week ahead that's not looking so great. I dropped Evgeny Kuznetsov today because, well, he's been quiet for a few games now. The last I checked was towards the end of the second period today. I don't know if he did anything after that yet, but Carolina doesn't even play the following week until Thursday. They're not doing anything Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So that's a dead spot. Kuznetsov would be a dead spot in my lineup for 10 days. So I think this is a starting point to see how many games the team of the player that you're thinking of dropping is going to have in the following week, and how long you're going to have to wait for those games if you want to pick someone else up. Another team, like I'm looking at Dallas, who, yeah, plays on Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday, but that's just one game on the Wednesday. So maybe you can stream it in at the time, but I'm not going to hold a player through an elimination week just so I can get one game from them on Wednesday and then wait another 3 days for their next one. Elon, am I still making sense to you?
Yeah, definitely. I think Dallas, if you don't mind, I'd love to just jump into Dallas quickly. And we could like, kind of jump back and forth, but like I had some players on Dallas I wanted to ask you about because that there are some really tough calls. Like for example, Rope Hintz is really cold lately. So I think he's someone that we've gotten some questions about his cold streak specifically. Only 1 point now in his last 6 games, just an assist a couple games back against Arizona. But I think he is top line, top power play. Like it's kind of also the weird thing with Hintz is that Robertson is on a hot streak right now. He's been great, and Hintz is playing with Robertson all the time. So it makes me wonder: is this just like Hintz is having bad luck in terms of shooting percentage while he's on the ice, like or not shooting percentage while he's on the ice, more like IPP, like just he's not getting in on any goals, and that should change. So yeah, I'm curious to know if Hintz qualifies for you as someone droppable, as you're saying, not a great schedule the following week. So like he's someone you're really going to play when he's on such a cold streak.
Yeah, and Hintz has been cold more often than hot since about the All-Star break. Like a lot. Like really, Hintz has had, if you've been rostering him, he's had one productive week for you, and that's it. And I'm just trying to see, like, I'm looking at a calendar to see if that all came in the same week. Oh, it did. So at least he helped you a whole bunch all at once. But that week was the first week of March. And outside that, like his shots are still fine, but really he's been quiet since late January, even though the deployment is still there. So Elon, he's actually an interesting case of somebody who, does check the top line, top power play boxes, and you wonder, do I drop? I mean, the guys who wouldn't survive on Dallas based on the parameters I've set so far are Matt Duchene, who he himself has gone cold. He has just 4 points in his last 17 games. So if you're still holding on, I think at least that makes it easy, right? It would be hard to drop a productive Duchesne. Wyatt Johnston has cooled off a little bit too. I mean, he had a 4-game goal streak, and that started 2 games after he scored a hat trick. And he has a point tonight already, I see, against Arizona. So he only went pointless for 2 games, but he doesn't have the deployment. And I think, if I'm looking at the shots and goals that he's picked up, that we wouldn't have expected that to be terribly sustainable. And again, like, I'm not saying Johnston and Duchesne are lost causes. All I'm saying is I'm not going to wait 10 games to see them actually get a game again. Yeah?
Yeah, like I would say in a normal situation, if this wasn't like elimination playoffs, I'd be interested to wait. Like Tyler Seguin is back from his injury. Maybe that'll help jumpstart Duchesne. They had a good line going with Marchment. But I agree with you. I think Duchesne, you got to let go of. Johnston. But if it was me, I'd hold on to Rope Hintz. And I know a lot of people might drop him, and that's understandable. But I don't know. I feel like the upside is there. So this is just a hunch based on what we've seen from him in the past. Like, I know he's been cold lately, but I think he could have one of those great weeks, especially like as long as he's holding this deployment and playing with Robertson and Pavelski, like I'm holding. And then the other clear Dallas star I'm holding outside of that top line, and Heiskanen, is definitely Jamie Benn, who just scored this goal today that was assisted by Wyatt Johnston. He's been on such a heater lately, ever since Stankoven got called up, right? But now it's like, even you're saying Johnston is cold, and he's also on that line. But Ben, of course, also gets that top power play, which has been clicking. So I think, yeah, for me, it's just those top power play Dallas Stars are the ones to hold, which does fall under your like guidelines. Hintz is the interesting one, so it'll be fun to see Trev check back on us in a couple of weeks and see if I was right or wrong to suggest to hold on to Hintz.
Yeah, I'd also keep Rupe Hintz. I'm absolutely. I'm like you said, for all the reasons you said, and I don't need to rehash them. And then Jamie Benn is one of those edge cases that I like, the one that I was thinking of, right? When you're not top line and top power play, are you worth holding? And like, I wanted, it should be an unqualified yes for Ben, right? Like he was cold earlier, like this winter, for like December, January, and into February. But around the middle of February, Ben stepped up again and has been doing great. But the thing that makes me wonder, Elon, is his current run. He's got 5 goals on 8 shots, which isn't a way to like continue to produce. So, if I really had to make a choice, I'd let him go. But I also, I wouldn't fault you for him being one of the guys that you want to hang on to. You want to hear some of the Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Well, no, I mean, we could just keep this conversation going probably all episode, right? Maybe we'll end up skipping a lot of the stuff we had planned. But it's interesting because I have been on my couple team, and not only am I thinking of holding him, like I've been looking at my busy Tuesday, Thursday, Saturdays and trying to decide, who I'm going to bench on those days. And like, I find it so hard to bench Jamie Benn. Like on Tuesday, I was thinking of benching Ehlers and playing Ben. And on Thursday, I was thinking of benching Ehlers and maybe also Gustav Nyquist. I don't know. Like, it's tricky. Like, just I get what you're saying about the shooting percentage, but at the same time, he's scored in 4 straight games. He's on that top power play. I feel like for me, what I'm probably gonna do, which is like probably not even smart as I think it, like I would hold until he like has a cold game, and then maybe then bench for the next game. But maybe that's just I'm just guaranteeing to myself that I'm gonna potentially bench a good game and play a bad game, but. I think for me, yeah, a guy that's scoring every single game and on the top power play, it would be hard for me to drop or bench him, at least until he goes cold first for a game or two.
Yeah, and like this also totally depends, right? Like I'm assuming when I'm talking about these guys that they're not making your lineup, right? Like it depends on how deep your team is.
But it's up to you. Sometimes also it's just like, normally Ben wouldn't make my lineup like a month ago, but when he's scored every single game over these past couple of weeks, it's kind of hard for him not to make my lineup,
Yeah, I still think, like I hear what you're saying. I still think, despite 15 points in his last 11 games, which is crazy, 4 of those on the power play, and we expect him to have a pretty hardy shooting percentage because he's been good at converting on the power play. This is still too high, but I hear what you're saying, and I think he's a great illustration of somebody who, you might be tempted to keep tossing into your lineup, just so then you're looking at who's he replacing, and is that guy worth keeping, right? Like that, the way I'm feeling is some weeks when I'm not sure who my bottom player is, I let the week kind of play out, but I feel like this week coming up, I need to figure that out like right away. Like I need
Of
to
course.
fish or cut bait on all my guys because whoever's already at the bottom of my roster, I gotta cycle them out for like St. Louis or Vegas or LA or who's the other team playing tomorrow? I'm trying or on Monday, Vancouver. Yeah, for someone on those teams who's going to give me an extra game.
Yeah, I mean, it also comes down to like I know for sure that like these hot streaks based on very high shooting percentage aren't sustainable. At the same time, I feel like there is still something to the short term psychology of like you're feeling the hot hand. It's just like
The
he's got the
hot hand.
confidence. Like
Yeah.
like I'm not saying it's gonna last. If it was like happening in like December, I wouldn't say it's gonna last all season. But I feel like when a guy's feeling himself, like these are humans still playing this game. It's not just like a robot simulation. So I feel like I don't know. I think it
There's
does something for
to
you.
it. There is something. I agree. Hot streaks, like you can carry momentum. Cold streaks, it can get in your head. Like these things happen, and I think there's real impacts from them, and good for you to try and account for them as well. And that's why
It's
we never
tricky.
it is tricky.
At the end of the
Okay,
day, also, let's just tell everybody because you are going to make mistakes. You are going to bench someone who gets a lot of points next week and play someone who does nothing. Like, please, nobody like feel bad about yourself for like, oh, I made the wrong choice. I'm so dumb. Like, a lot of this is luck, and I feel like sometimes we really tie our like self esteem to like, I'm smart because I played Nyquist and benched Jamie Benn, and like, or I'm dumb for doing the opposite. And it's kind of like we're talking like 49% to 51%. Oftentimes, like, we get questions on our Discord. Would you play this guy or this guy? Would you drop this guy? And oftentimes in my head, I'm like, to me, this is like I'm 55% confident in my answer being the right one. And so it's like there's still a very good chance I'll be wrong. It doesn't necessarily mean your process was wrong, but anyway, that's all to say. Brian, let's hear the rest of your list of the players who you
okay.
think are maybe more clearly droppable.
Couple more edge cases, and I'm leaving out D just in general because I think depending on your format and what peripherals you get from them, they're valued differently. Like there's a ton of guys who I wouldn't consider must rosters that are 100% rostered in Cupful right now, but I also assume that most people only have 4D, and so you're going to get like as many D as you have D slots. So I just say if you have any excess D, chop off the fifth if they're not getting in your lineup. That's an easy one. And I'm not going to focus on goalies either because that's also like a really fluid situation. But we should. Do you want to do it by team, Elon, or do you want to mention a few now who might be worth a couple starts this upcoming week?
Oh, goalies?
Yeah.
Well, you're teasing too much. Just give us your
Okay.
list, and then
Okay.
I've actually got a lot of goalies planned to discuss when we actually get to the content I prepared.
All
before
right.
Shams threw us off. Thanks, Shams.
And you know what? I'll also mention the third rule here is just like I'm not really looking at St. Louis or those four teams I mentioned who are playing Monday. We're not dropping them yet, but like you
And
can.
then there's also Buffalo
after,
plays
after Monday.
has-
Buffalo plays Tuesday, Wednesday. Boston.
no, Buffalo's
plays
Wednesday,
Tuesday,
Friday. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So so for this week, if they're going to give you an extra game, those extra games are golden right now. So like even
Fair.
Jeff Skinner. Oh my gosh, who we anti-jinxed last week. If you're not
If you
sure
have
that-
him now, you keep
Yeah.
him for sure.
Yeah.
No, Brian, I'm assuming all the people you're going to throw out here are people playing Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So here's a name who's on a top line, not the top power play, and he's been hot lately. And Elon, I'm actually not sure because the Rangers, there's a hint, have a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday schedule next week. I'm talking about Alexis Lafreniere, who is doing incredibly well lately. He's got 6 points in his last 7 games, 2 goals, 4 assists. He had a 7-shot game in there, which is a season, it ties a season high. It's the second 7-shot game he's had. He's had a couple 6-shot games, but the power play time isn't there, which makes him a candidate for being dropped. I think you could. It depends on desperation level, right? And how much, it's worth looking at to see also how many more games your opponent might have than you to try and make sure you're making relevant moves and not just adding games when it's not going to really move the needle or when you're not sure it's going to move the needle. So Lafreniere is someone who I might try and keep like through Tuesday, see what the lineup, see what the scores look like in my matchup, and then cut as needed because I'd like to have him for the following week if I can. But if he's playing one or no games for me, then I think you can cut. But he's one edge case. Elon, where are you on Lafreniere?
No, I guess I'm with you. Like I'm more confident that he'll go cold than even like a Jamie Benn, just because, like you say, he's not on the top power play. The Rangers have been doing well. Like, obviously, he's playing with Panarin, who's been insane lately. I look at the games. You got Philly, Colorado, and Arizona. So, like, Philly, actually, they could score some goals, right? So that could be a reason also to hold Lafreniere. Like, maybe some of these players, you need to look at the teams that they're playing, especially like Arizona at the end of the week. Though, if it's Vejmelka playing as is scheduled, Vejmelka's actually been really good. So no, I'm with you. I think that would be a tough drop to make, but maybe you have to make it because, like, I agree. Yeah, not top power play makes him a little less appealing. Who else do you have there?
All right, I'm going to name a trio of Carolina Hurricanes, and there's three of them, and I'll also oh, what was it? Sorry. All right, I'm going to mention a trio of Carolina Hurricanes, starting with a couple of the obvious ones. So Evgeny Kuznetsov is indeed pointless in 3 now. He's only taken 3 shots. He was taking 3 or 4 shots a night when he came to Carolina, and I was like, oh, yeah, maybe the goals will start coming too. And they did, but now he's not shooting the same amount. And he only played 12 and a half minutes today, Sunday. So that's not a great return on Kuznetsov, who's playing with Necas and Svechnikov at even strength and on the second power play unit. He was kind of flirting with PP one time. So I think he's a cut. Martin Necas is also on the an edge case here. I think his shots are good enough that he probably is not the worst player on your roster. So I think I'll say, even though he doesn't have the perfect deployment, who was he with today? Oh, I just mentioned Kuznetsov and Svechnikov, and still like the same deployment as oh, sorry,
Kuznetsov?
yeah, same deployment as Kuznetsov. I would keep him. And then Elon, the one that I think is an easy one, an easy cut for sure. These are all 100% rostered, or 90% or more, but we're starting with some 100% guys, and probably 100% rostered because they were playing today. But Teuvo Teravainen is not an edge case. He's a real easy cut. He played with Jordan Stahl and Jordan Martinook today, and on the second power play unit. Elon, any thoughts to add on those 3? I guess the bigger question is, like, do you think Kuznetsov and Teuvo are as easy as I'm saying? And do you hold an HS?
I do definitely agree that, like, all else equal, I would also drop Teravainen and Kuznetsov. I'm actually in a tough spot, Brian, because I have Kuznetsov, and I'm realizing that on a couple of the days I have to play him just because I don't have a lot of centers, and I don't even have, like, I have a lot of wingers on my bench. So I am in the situation now where I have to decide, am I going to use one of my 4 moves just to, like, upgrade Kuznetsov for another center, even though I'm not gaining any games? It might have, like, and we'll talk about if we ever get to it, like, some centers that I'm kind of interested in that might be upgrades that are available in my free agency. But at the same time, I definitely agree. If you're able to bench Kuznetsov, then I think you should and just drop him. And I agree with Teravainen, but I also agree with you that Necas is, like, I think he's one of those exceptions. He's, like, even though he's not on the top power play, he's having a great season. He shoots a ton. I have a lot of confidence that Necas is going to continue to do what he's doing. So I would have a really hard time dropping Martin Necas. To compare him to before, I'd rather Necas over Jamie Benn if we're making a list there.
Okay. Yeah. I love that. Okay. I'm with you there. All right. Next up on my edge cases is an interesting duo from Pittsburgh. We've got Evgeny Malkin and Erik Karlsson, who might.
I thought you said no D.
Oh yeah.
But okay.
But like Karlsson, sort of, I think, like, break. You're right. I shouldn't include him because you're not gonna drop him, right? There's no better option. I assume he's not your worst defenseman.
Yeah, like, he's a huge disappointment for sure, but yeah, if you have 4 defensemen better than Karlsson, then, like, good job. But also, you probably should have drafted differently. But yeah, Karlsson did have 5 shots today, so he's probably getting some bad puck luck. He's had 13 shots in his last 3 games and no points, so maybe something starts going in for EK65. Yeah. But yeah, Malkin, I'm with you, and we discussed that with Laidlaw, and you commented on it last week, and, like, Malkin is getting harder to hold.
There's been a little change though. I don't know if you saw the lines today. Malkin's he's on the top power play.
Yeah, and how did the Penguins do?
They lost 5-4 in overtime against Colorado, which seems like a pretty nice game result,
I guess. And how did Malkin do on the top power play?
He did, like, nothing. I think he took a shot today. Like, it
makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just gonna say it makes sense.
You don't have to. I think you could drop Malkin. Actually, I was deciding between dropping Malkin or Kuznetsov, and the difference maker for me was the schedule the following week. I think Rust is the only other keepable forward outside Crosby in Pittsburgh. Rust is on a nice little run. He's got 6 points in his last 6 games, including 4 goals, which is a nice, tidy piece of business.
Yeah, no, for sure. Brian Rust has been really good. And he's someone that I never fully believed in. Or it took me a long time to believe in him. When he was hot, I was like, oh, he's Brian Rust. He's been around forever, never was anything. And then he had a couple good seasons. And I thought it was just maybe because of good line mates. But at this point, yeah, we're seeing all these people cycling in and out of these spots with Crosby, and not all of them do great. So yeah, Brian Rust definitely a hold. And Malkin, like, look, he's Evgeny Malkin. Maybe he can do something, but it does seem like maybe either he's lost a step because of like maybe he's have some injury right now. Like, I don't know. Hopefully it's not just forever. And now the Penguins are going to be saddled with this big contract and he's like not that effective anymore. But yeah, this power play thing is like, I could see it changing again because they've been trying to figure out this power play for a long time now. So yeah, I think Malkin would be a drop if you, yeah, like, you have to drop someone. Malkin definitely someone I would consider. By the way, Jesse Puljujärvi scored a goal today for Pittsburgh. So that, I haven't been following him too closely, but got to imagine that's one of his first goals he scored. Oh no, that's the second goal of the year in 13 games. For a guy who was out of the league, it probably feels good for him to be back and scoring a goal in the NHL. We'll see if he can build on that. We'll see if he gets a contract next year.
Former favorite of mine.
Sure.
Yeah. I've sort of given up on him, but hey, it's always nice to see, especially someone with that kind of pedigree, right? To show up and wonder, maybe this is the time. I'm a real sucker for those types. Okay, let's move to Winnipeg, who in 2 weeks plays Monday, Thursday, Saturday. And Elon, I'm going to throw 3 guys at you because Monahan, in the last game, Winnipeg had Monahan and Scheifele playing on, Connor and Scheifele playing on separate lines. So I'm not like, I think I'd call the Scheifele, Ehlers, Appleton line the top line, but they were pretty evenly deployed. All right, so let's say Winnipeg has 2 top lines, and the names that I'm going to throw out to you and wonder if any of them are keepers are Sean Monahan. So Sean Monahan is playing on the Kyle Connor line and on the top power play, but he's only taken 4 shots in his last 3 games and has no points. Elon, you're going to bust in before I even talk about the other 2. So why don't you, go for it. You're muted.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that the Jets have lost 3 in a row, and they just are coming off a bad 3-0 loss to the Capitals today. So I would guess that the lines will change again. Like, I just don't want you to go too hard. It's like these are the lines for next week because I think their bonus is trying to figure something out here. So I don't think anything is set in stone with this team on this losing streak right now. So just something to keep in mind.
Sure. I'll counter with, even if Sean Monahan is top line, top power play, I'm not sure I'm holding him. I'm not sure he makes my lineup. Okay.
I put my hand up before you even said the word Sean Monahan. Okay. Just when you started talking about the lines, that's when I was like, oh, just don't read too much into it.
All right. Another cold Jet who's not even on one of these top lines is Tyler Toffoli, who's still on the top power play, but he's playing with Niederreiter and Adam Lowry at 5-on-5. And he had that pair of 2-goal efforts that are now about 10 days ago. And since then, we haven't seen a whole lot from him. Just 5 shots in his last 3 games, no points, but still seeing top power play deployment, even though he's nowhere at 5-on-5. And then the third Jet for us to consider whether he's a keep or drop is Nick Ehlers, who has been, I can barely get the words out of my mouth, reasonably consistently productive going back a month now. This is the longest spell of consistent production that I think we've seen from Ehlers this season. Maybe that's a bit of a stretch, but obviously it's always so frustrating when he stops scoring because it feels like he's always stopping scoring. But he's still shooting. His point totals are good. So I think he's a hold, even though he's the one. Ehlers is playing with Scheifele and Appleton, but he's on the second power play unit. So I would take, I'll throw it to you, but here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking I keep Ehlers and I cut Foley and Monahan, but Ehlers is not a sure keep. If we're comparing him to Martin Necas and Jamie Benn, he probably falls somewhere around that area.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you with Toffoli and Monahan, and with Ehlers, I'd potentially drop him. I'm looking at my team. I have Ehlers. Like I said, if you look at my wingers, I have to. You can only play a couple, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can only play 6 wingers on a day, right? Because you have two util spots, 2 left wing, 2 right wing. So I'm looking. I've got Nichushkin, Hyman, Lekanen, Ben, Nyquist, Marchessault, Forsberg. That's 6, and then I have Ehlers as 7. So I don't know. Like I guess I have to decide if like Lekanen maybe is better. Like I'm looking at like Lekanen, Ehlers, and like maybe Ben. But I'm kind of like I said, I kind of want to stick with Ben. So I'm kind of like deciding now between Lekanen and Ehlers. So I don't know, Brian, if that like puts you in the mindset I am of like if Ehlers is a cutter. I think he's close. I think like Ehlers not being on that top power play goes cold sometimes. Yeah, he's been like reasonably consistent. I don't expect Ehlers to go pointless this week, but I also don't expect him to get a hat trick. And I would love to just be rostering players who have the potential to get a hat trick if possible.
Yeah, that's fair. No, I think that makes sense. And I think the way you described your lineup in that bottom piece is really the predicament we're in. And I'm glad you mentioned Arturi Lehkonen because I think I'll end with him. I'll end my edge cases roundup with Arturi Lehkonen, who it looks like today, I'm just looking at the latest lines. My initial thought when I had him on this list was he might be off the top power play, but he was playing with Nathan MacKinnon. But as of today, he was on the second line with Drouin and Middlestat, and he had a single shot on goal, a hit, a block, and not much else going on. And you know me, I've been more of a fence sitter with Lehkonen than you've been. I dropped Lehkonen. Uh, okay, sorry. I dropped Lehkonen. Nope. I held Lehkonen over the guys I dropped, like I mentioned, Kuznetsov and Sharangovich, just because that MacKinnon exposure is so valuable. Like I will take one game with MacKinnon at 5-on-5 over a lot of other situations that aren't so locked in. So, if we're looking at Lehkonen as a guy who's not top line or top power play, if he's just got one of those going, honestly, when you're on Colorado with MacKinnon and Rantanen, that's a pretty sweet deal either way. But again, it looks like the Avs for one game, or at least 2 games ago, split MacKinnon and Rantanen into 2 lines. But today the Avs reunited MacKinnon, Rantanen, and added Nichushkin as the third piece, and Lehkonen was playing on the second unit that no one cares about. So Elon, I don't know. Like I think I'd prefer Nick Ehlers to Arturi Lehkonen. That's how
Sold.
I'd shake it out. But and I'm wondering if I should have kept Sharangovich over Lehkonen. But hey, we'll find out.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about Sharangovich, but I think you're right. And I think maybe Lehkonen will be a drop. And the guy that maybe now becomes more interesting in this conversation is now Jonathan Drouin, who would be really tough to drop after his 2 goals and an assist today. He's been on that top power play. He also had 2 assists in the previous game versus Columbus. Drouin also had 2 assists versus St. Louis in the previous game before that. An assist versus like TLDR, Drouin is on a hot streak. MacKinnon had an assist on one of Drouin's goals today, which extended some insane streak that MacKinnon is on, like about to like break a record or second like longest home point streak, I think it is, of all time. So if MacKinnon and Drouin are doing things together, I think I agree with you that Lehkonen is maybe a drop. And now it's just a question of, are you really going to drop Jonathan Drouin, who has 8 points in his last 4 games? I'd be very tempted to try to get Drouin into my lineup for at least the Tuesday game against Montreal, who's not a team that suppresses goals that well. So I would probably be trying, and that's the thing also with Lehkonen, right? I do like the matchup against Montreal, but if Lehkonen's going to be away from MacKinnon and Rantanen, even strength and power play, then I'm not that interested. But Drouin on that top power play, I might hold. So it makes it tricky, and also they might change the line. So they did win this game, though it wasn't the cleanest win, I guess, especially over a struggling Penguins team. But hey, they got it done. So I'll be interested to see if the Avalanche keep the lines the same or if they change things up.
Me too. And I'm just, now that I sort of have committed to Lehkonen for the week, I'm really hoping he ends up back with MacKinnon. Yeah. All right. So is your lineup settled? Like mine is settled. Is yours?
No. Well, now I'm deciding between still, because I'm going to make a drop. I have to decide. Okay, I have to decide first of all, like this, like Lehkonen versus Ehlers thing. And I think I'm with you. I think I might be dropping Lehkonen, and then also I'm still deciding on whether I want to drop Kuznetsov for a center upgrade. And then my main plan is to like get goalies. Right now I have Charlie Lindgren, and I just added Vejmelka. I mentioned a matchup maximizer that the what's his name, the Arizona coach, Turingi, something.
Andre Turini.
Yeah. that the Arizona coach Turingi like kind of committed to just alternating goalies throughout, which means that Ingram is playing today. I saw a tweet from the Arizona Coyotes Twitter account today that they called him Ingy. Ingy gets the net, which I didn't realize was a nickname for Ingram, but there you go. And a little behind the scenes on GameDayTweets.com. I have a nicknames table in my database because sometimes I'm trying to like tag, the players when they're in a tweet, so that when you search for tweets about a player, you'll be able to see them. And so I need to know like the common nicknames for a player like EK65, for example. I need to know that that's Erik Karlsson. Anyways, I just added today Ingy, Ingy, as a Connor Ingram nickname. But yeah, anyways, if Ingy's playing today, then that should mean that Vejmelka gets Tuesday and then also Saturday. So those are my two goalies. So that I should have an opening for a Thursday goalie at least. So I was planning to use a move for that. So definitely my lineup is not set. I have to figure out how I'm going to use these moves. But I love all these players you brought up, Brian. I think lots to think about. And I think with that, it's probably time for us to take a break. And we come back, I'll get into the content I had prepared for this show, and we'll see how much we can get through. So we'll be back in just a second. Listen to Keeping Karlsson. All right. So I assumed I would just cut off. I don't know if you had a response to that.
No, it's fine. Like, well, I was wondering if we wanted to have like a loose conversation on goalies, or we can just, when
how
we
about
get,
as we go,
when we
I'll
get
bring
to the
up some
team.
goalies. Yeah.
Well, just when we get to the team. I just noticed that Capo Kakkonen had a shutout today.
I have him in the
Damn.
I have him like listed.
2 games for Jersey. Are either guy worth holding?
It's a good
Probably
question.
not.
Probably not. Probably just a stream on the day kind of thing at this point.
I was really counting on
well, let's get it back into the show and then let's talk about this actually.
Okay.
We can just right up.
That was for it was selfish talk, but okay.
Okay, we'll do it live. I've been doing a ton of selfish talk on this episode so far. Okay.
All right.
Welcome back to Keeping Karlsson. All right, Brian. So we were going to get into the content off air. We were talking about how, all right, should we just kind of continue the strategy conversation or get into the players that I have been listing? Like the way I kind of plan the shows, right? All throughout the week, I'm kind of like marking down players that I think will be worth bringing up. But then now it's kind of like seems like a lot of people are interested more in strategy. And it was you were saying that maybe we should talk a little bit about goalies because we didn't mention many in that first segment. And we were just saying how interesting development, at least in New Jersey, because I was going to bring up at some points, I'll just do it now. Jake Allen had been so good, but then it got totally blown up in his start yesterday for New Jersey. And now today, Capo Kakkonen just put up a 36 save shutout versus the Islanders. And so now the Devils only play 2 times next week. Becomes pretty tricky to predict who those goalie starts are going to be. Probably you can't rely on either of these guys to get both games. So maybe it's just more of a stream on the day they play.
I think so. I have Jake Allen, and I've really just been sitting on him and wondering if he was worth keeping for 2 games. And I was like, okay, well, New Jersey has a back-to-back. Yeah, he was bad, but he's been so good, and Kakkonen will come in, not do anything special. Then Allen will play well enough on Tuesday to earn the next start Saturday, and 2 games from a goalie is about as good as it can get from what's available. And I also had to decide because Trevor Zegras, it was like a game time decision and my roster was going to be locked. So I actually couldn't wait until, I don't know what time the Jersey game was today, but I had to, I didn't do a thorough look at the scoreboard, I guess, before. Anyway, what I'm trying to say here is it's Trevor Zegras' fault that I'm going to be stuck with Jake Allen next week because I think, like you said, Elon, I think both these Jersey goalies now are streams as needed. And I don't think there's much hope that either one is going to get 2 games next week. I guess there's a chance that Kakkonen can get 2 games. But with the Devils already only playing twice, I was barely holding Jake Allen. And now I'm definitely not interested in holding Jake Allen.
I think what you do is wait till Tuesday. New Jersey will hopefully get us a tweet early on. They're playing against Toronto, though, so it's kind of a tough start, but I guess you've already got Allen. I guess you were already planning on playing him even against the Leafs on a road game, which might be rough. But yeah, I'd say if Allen is playing and you have him on your roster, I guess you might as well hold. But if it turns out that Kakkonen's getting the start on Tuesday, then it's an easy drop. That's why you got your 4 moves. You can switch to another goalie. There'll be a lot of goalies playing, I think, that will be in free agency because of the crazy schedule. But yeah, it's an interesting situation in net over in New Jersey. They also called up a backup or like a Miners goalie, Isaac Poulter. I don't know why. Maybe Allen's injured. Brian, maybe you'll get lucky. Or lucky, unlucky. I don't know. I guess you only have the 4 moves regardless. But maybe Allen has something that hasn't been announced yet. I don't know. Who backed up today? Was it Allen or was it Isaac Poulter? Who knows? Who cares? I guess it doesn't matter. We'll find out on Tuesday what's going on with the Devils. Keeping the goalie talk going, I was going to mention Jacob Markstrom is back for Calgary. So I'm curious to see what's going to happen now for their 3 games. Markstrom's first game back wasn't anything special. He took the loss against Vancouver, let in 3 goals on 25 shots. So, it's a borderline. Like, it's not a great save percentage, 880, but also it was only 3 goals against. So if it was only 2 goals against, we'd be like, oh, it was a good game, So it's like right about like one shot changes everything. Anyways, we'll see now what Calgary's going to do, because the news is that, first of all, Vladar's out for the season. He had season-ending hip surgery, and Dustin Wolf, he had a shaky start to his NHL career earlier this year, but he's had some good games recently. He shut out Colorado. Well, no, that was only 20 minutes of play. But then the next game, he led in only 1 goal against Vegas, then got a win against Montreal. And then finally, Wolf took a loss in his most recent game against Montreal, letting in 4 goals on 32 shots. But overall, Wolf has been showing himself to be a pretty good NHL goalie, at least a serviceable. So I wonder if Calgary, what's the point of driving Markstrom into the ground and playing him all 3 games coming back from injury? Who knows? Hard to predict, but nice to see Wolf doing well. Anyways, I think this will be a more interesting conversation to have over the summer and doing Schmore Goalies Board next year. Of are we expecting Calgary to be more of a tandem team next year with these 2 guys, or are we still going to be banking on Markstrom? But as far as next week goes, Brian, are you having any interest in adding a Dustin Wolf, or only if he gets a spot start?
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to do a spec ad on Wolf. It's going to be like the Alan Kakkonen situation that we just mentioned, where if I see he's starting, I'll go ahead and add him. But I don't know, Elon. I think I expect Jacob Markstrom to still be getting the bulk of the starts, even though he's just coming back from injury.
Fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably right.
Calgary is not in it. And that's actually a reason to think that maybe Dustin Wolf will get more. It's hard to say. It's hard to it's a great question. Like you said, I think it's best pushed to the off season. Maybe they'll split the rest of the way, and this is phase 1 of figuring out who the starter is going to be next year.
Yeah, or they don't have to have a starter, right? A lot of teams nowadays are running tandems and doing well, like Boston, of course, as the 4 leader. There's probably a word that I meant to say, but I came out with 4 leaders somehow. But yeah, I think that Markstrom and Wolf could probably be a really nice tandem, and that'll make it tough to draft. It'll be kind of like back when we were scared to draft Bobrovsky as Spencer Knight was coming up, because it seemed like any season now Knight's going to take over, or at least be 50-50, and that never happened. I'm very confident in Wolf now. I was very confident in Spencer Knight at the time, and maybe there was also extenuating circumstances. I know he ended up going to the player assistance program, but anyways, not all these situations are the same. But we'll deal with that in the summer. I was going to also mention, I think I mentioned it quickly, Tyler Seguin is back, right, from his injury, and he just scored a goal today. So if Tyler Seguin, the thing is, normally I'd be so if he's in free agency because he was dropped because he was injured, now might be a good time to get him back. He's having a decent season. But again, with the bad schedule next week, probably there's no reason to jump on Tyler Seguin. A guy on Dallas that maybe you will have room for, because, like you mentioned, Brian, not everyone is full on defense, but Thomas Harley was cold for a while. And recently he has changed that. And now Harley has 5 points in his last 5 games, at least going into today. We'll see how he does in this game against Arizona. But yeah, Harley had a 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 game pointless streak before now getting points in 4 straight. So if you need D and he's out there, probably in that case, he's probably worth a grab. I'd be curious to know who else you're deciding between.
I don't know. They're halfway through the game tonight. He has he has a hit. And that's all.
Sure.
The last 2 games,
you should see my free agency in Cupful.
Okay. Yeah. It depends on how desperate you are here. I think if I had an open D spot, instead of trying to add a guy, I'd be looking at Braden McNabb or Alec Martinez if they're available to start the week. And then
Brian,
move to Hampus Lindholm on Wednesday. I'd be trying to really juice the GP from that spot. See if there's anyone. Nikita Zadorov in Vancouver. I don't know.
Is that really how you want to use your moves though? Maybe you should save moves for goalie ads and all these nothing goalies and for defense. But for what it's worth, Speaking of a Braden McNabb type stat line, Harley had 6 hits and 5
Yeah.
blocks in
The-
that last game against Pittsburgh.
Right, which is like you look at the
Yeah,
rest of his
rare.
games, and that's
Yeah,
clearly the outlier. So
yeah,
yes,
for
he
sure.
had a McNabbian game there. So you could, but I don't know, Elon. I think the floor is just a little too low on Thomas Harley for me to want to make a 3-game commitment to him. I'd rather like if Radko Gudas, like if someone's out there. I mean, Gudas may or may not be healthy, but if someone's out there who's going to get you at least some kind of contribution, I would I'd go for the safe floor.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. Okay, I'll do a few more outros for you. So Dylan Larkin is back after his injury, where Detroit did not fare too well. But hey, he's back, so you don't have to worry about that anymore going into next week. Larkin in the last game was playing with Perron and Lucas Raymond, and then Patrick Kane was playing with DeBrincat and JT Compher. As far as Larkin goes, whatever, it doesn't matter because he's someone who you're rostering all the time. He scored 2 goals in his return, nothing in the next game. I think the interesting guys here, there's like a couple guys on hot streaks. Lucas Raymond, 9 points in his last 7 games. Patrick Kane, 8 points in his last 7. I still don't know who won our bet of like at one point Kane
Is
was
that
on
a
a hot
joke?
streak.
Are you trying
No, I
to
don't
just
know.
be cute about it? Okay.
No, I'm not. I don't remember because we
He-
were like specific. It was like it had to be like in the next 11 games, you had to get like 8, 9 points. Anyways, Trev will tell us. I'm curious more. Maybe this is also more of an offseason conversation, but I think an interesting question would be like going into drafts next year. Let's say Patrick Kane re-signs with Detroit. Who do you draft first? Like if you're looking at Lucas Raymond and Patrick Kane, like someone super young on the upswing of his career, someone super old like and on the downswing, but also a former like huge superstar and someone who's still like very much holding his own. I think it would be a tough choice, but I don't know. I'd be tempted to go Patrick Kane, and I also think I would like hate myself early on in the season realizing that I made a big mistake and he's finally like fallen off right when I drafted him.
Yeah, well, I could see you definitely because like you always want the like up and coming, you want the breakthrough season, right? That like that's how you win in fantasy, or that's at least what makes it really fun. Is when you grab a player and it's exactly the right time to do it. With Lucas Raymond, he's still like to my eye, he's not there yet. Like I'm like okay, and I should add the disclaimer. He's pacing for 70 points this year, all right, and has 9 points in his last
And
7
how old
games.
is he? Like 21 or something?
He's 20. He's turned 22 in 4 days. So happy early birthday, Lucas Raymond.
That's pretty good.
So like the step up could come. So just because I'm saying I haven't seen it yet, like this is Raymond's 3rd year in the NHL already. So he's had an age 19, 20, and 21 season. It's 4th year next year. Dauber loves the 4th year breakout. He'll be 22. We'll see what his deployment looks like. Maybe there's a little more substance to the top 6 for him to not end up playing with not enough help. The thing that I just want from Raymond is more consistency. Like for example, this run that Raymond's just getting off, he had 7 goals in 5 games. And those 7 goals came on 15 shots. So obviously I'm going to say like he scored on like half his shots. Way to go. But 4 of them came on the power play. All right. So that's cool. You can convert big on the power play, as I always say. The thing that drives me kind of bonkers about this, though, is Raymond had, in this stretch of 5 games, he took 3 or more shots 4 times. Since then, Elon, Raymond has played twice, and he has 1 single shot total from both games. And going before this run, he was also like, it was 1s and 0s, like frequently enough. And I actually think this is the first time, like this little shooting run was really the biggest, most consistent shooting run that Raymond's had this season. And so I just feel like it's working for you, man. Like you have the hot hand. Just keep shooting. And he didn't. And that frustrates me. And that's why I just like want him to be a little better, a little more reliable. His percentages are up this year. Like if we regressed, like variance is up for him. If we regressed where he should be, like he wouldn't be on a 70-point pace, but he'd still be on a respectable enough pace, like maybe 60 points or so. I haven't like done the full slate of math on it. But yeah, it's just hard for me to buy in when like something is working for him and then he just stops doing it.
Yeah, typical Gen Z, Brian. You can't these kids, you can't rely on them. But yeah, maybe a little. Maybe he'll get it going next year. Like again, like like It's impressive that he's played 3 years. He started like he wasn't supposed to play that first year. I don't think anyone was predicting. I remember it was like surprising when he made the team out of camp as an 18-year-old. So I could definitely see him taking a step up. And hey, he's like lately, like I said, 9 points his last 7 games for Lucas Raymond. Obviously, it'll help if he could stick with Larkin all year, and Larkin could not get injured. That obviously helps Lucas Raymond quite a bit. Let's go to another out jury.
Oh,
Victor. Oh,
just
please.
well, just before we move
No.
on from Detroit, I did in case like it's not like with Larkin coming back. I'm hoping that he can do some damage. But one thing to note is that the Red Wings seem to have abandoned their 50-50 split power play in recent games. They seem to actually be loading up that top unit. So and like with minutes, not just players. So let's see if that holds because that wasn't consistently the case around the time that Larkin got injured.
Yeah, so something to watch. Okay, yeah. Victor Arvidsson back for the Kings after missing a lot of time. Had himself a nice return, 1 goal and 1 assist versus Minnesota. Pointless and only 1 shot in the next game, the 4-3 win over Tampa. So I think Arvidsson still, like, actually, I'd be curious to know, Brian, how does Arvidsson slot in for you? I guess, like, LA plays Monday, so that's good. You're obviously
Yeah,
holding for that. But
he
let's say
dodged
after
the
that
discussion that way.
yeah, but then after that Monday, I'm going to bring him back in after that Monday game. I guess then you'll have a decision to make because after that, LA only plays on the Thursday, Saturday. Arvidsson has been playing on a line with Dubois and Laferriere, which is like, sounds bad, especially how things have gone this year for Dubois. Though I should mention, Pierre-Luc Dubois is actually on a little nice run himself. So 6 points in his last 5 games. I still would probably drop after the Monday if you need to, but I do wonder if like Dubois will be a good sneaky pick for drafts next year. And I apologize to people that I'm starting to like look so much into the future when it's like we really should be focused on here and now. But I can't help it. My brain wanders once, especially in a couple. Now I'm in the consolation playoffs, which is exciting, but also like I'm kind of starting to think about winning again at some point. So Dubois, I think of like a Joe Pavelski, like had his first season on his new team in Dallas and was nothing special, and then really took off after that. I wonder if Dubois has something like that in him, and I'm not saying they're the same type of player, but Dubois was a lot better, and now he's like half point per game guy, but he's starting to show some signs of life, and obviously nice for him to be playing with Arvidsson. And back to Arvidsson, I should mention that he was on the top power play in the last game with Kopitar, Fiala, and Kempe and Drew Doudet. Drew Doudet.
I like
So
that.
Kempe and Daude. By the way, Kempe, oh my God, what a hot streak he's on. And Kopitar. Like, there's a lot of Kings that are doing really well, so that would make me interested in keeping Arvidsson, obviously more than Dubois, though I'd love to see Arvidsson back with like a Fiala. But I guess the Deneau Fiala Moore line is holding its own. So it's all interesting in LA. They're such a deep team. I think they're going to be a really fun team. And also, by the way, the goalies, that's some intrigue, right? Because Talbot, say Cam Fowler. Okay, so I'll just edit that. Cam Talbot has been like so great lately, but kind of like with this Kokkonen thing, Brian, all of a sudden in the last game, David Riddick put up a huge shutout, like 38 saves, something insane like that. So now I wonder what LA is going to do on Monday. I think a lot of people are waiting to see if their first stream of the week is it going to be David Riddick if he's out there, but we got to find out if LA is going to roll with him. I guess LA played yesterday and Talbot played and he was fine. So like you would think generally they've been playing Talbot more than 1 game in a row since he's a starter, but maybe since Riddick is coming off a shutout, he gets the next game. Though I had that thought when Annunen on Colorado had that shutout a few games back, and I thought maybe he can get in after just 1 game off, to keep that shutout streak going, and then it wasn't the case, and Georgiev got like the next 3 games or whatever, like just on schedule. So I'll be very curious to see what the Kings do. I have no prediction. I think it's 50-50 for me of who gets that game on Monday for the Kings.
Me too. And I had a choice to make of whether or not to bet on Riddick getting a start or to take Kevin Hayes because I had delayed my decision so long that I could have had Jake Neighbors at one point. But then, like, okay, Hayes has taken like a few shots a game and he's not that far removed from a nice little hot run. So I went with Hayes, but we'll see if David Riddick plays. I mean, the counterpoint to him, like, he didn't start after a shutout. Neither did Cam Talbot when Talbot shut out Chicago. But the thing is that both those shutouts happened as part of a back-to-back situation where the split was preordained. And so I'm kind of assuming that now it's not a back-to-back, that Talbot will get more than a game in a row. And that's why I didn't go Riddick. But I agree. It seems to be kind of up for grabs. So that's something to keep an eye on. As for Arvidsson, when he's shooting, we like him. When he's not, we don't. And we never know which version of him is going to show up. So I think I'd keep him for Monday. And then I don't think I'd consider him a must have. Although it is worth mentioning that he has supplanted another edge case that I left off the docket because he plays Monday. But Quinton Byfield has been bumped from the top power play by the return of Victor Arvidsson. Now, Byfield had not has gone 19 games without a power play point. So it's not a place he's had a lot of success from lately, but he does have 12 power play points through 68 games, which is like, well, it was decent before this 19-game power play drought that Byfield just, well, he's still on, but now he's been bumped to the second unit for a couple games. So I would expect that to continue. So for me, actually, Byfield is very possibly a drop post Monday. Take the game, take the free game, and then it might be time to move on from Byfield as well. And then Pierre-Luc Dubois, nice little run. Elon, I'll just say, if you're looking for next year and you're comparing him to a guy with the character of Joe Pavelski, Pierre-Luc Dubois,
Rude.
you're
Yeah.
talking about character? How dare you? But you know what? All of that will disappear the moment that Pierre-Luc Dubois actually starts to play well. And we'll see if that moment actually happens. I like that you're thinking about it. Like, I'd consider him someone that I don't really need to reach very far to draft, like a late round kind of pick, just to see what kind of camp he has and where he starts the season. I mean, I wouldn't count him out. He's demonstrated himself to be a quality player, but yeah, still searching for a fit in LA.
Yeah, I mean, hey, this is the kind of exactly like I'm not going to reach for Pierre-Luc Dubois next year. I don't think you had to reach for Pavelski after his 35-point season he had in Dallas, but it's the kind of pick I like to make late in my draft, that like high upside, and if it doesn't work out, just drop him. So we'll see, but we'll deal with that in the summer. Next up, Brian, I'm still talking about outcheries here. Mackenzie Blackwood is back for San Jose. Which normally we wouldn't care, but again we're like kind of trying to scrimp for some goalie starts next week potentially. And he's a guy in my free agency who I was thinking like, oh, I could get 3 games from Mackenzie Blackwood next week. He's kind of like feast or famine. Every once in a while he has an incredible game. Sometimes he lets in like 4 or 5 goals. In his first game back versus Tampa Bay, 4 goals against. So obviously that's the famine. Next week I look at the opponents, right? It's Dallas Tuesday, Minnesota Thursday, St. Louis Saturday for San Jose. Not great. I'd probably pass. Also, like Devin Cooley got a start on Saturday versus Chicago. I'm not sure exactly why, because it wasn't a back-to-back. So maybe Mackenzie Blackwood isn't even like a guaranteed play. So I'd probably stay away, but had to mention it. And then I'll just also mention, I think this is just going to be deja vu from last week, but Granlund and Zetterlund just continue to crush it. Like I wouldn't drop that. I think like if I had them on my team, I might be playing them over like, we were talking about Ehlers or Lehkonen or something. I think I'd be probably playing Granlund. I wish I had Granlund right now. I need a center. I would easily drop Kuznetsov and hold Granlund. I shouldn't have dropped him when I had him like a few weeks back. I didn't think that I would need a center.
Whoever needs it. Actually, I've been in that position a lot lately because when you don't think you need a center, you forget to hold on to centers. That's so I'm sorry to hear that. But yeah, I would prefer like what are we saying here? Granlund and Zetterlund good. I like the synergy in their last names, and also I don't know that Mackenzie Blackwood. Like I think the highlight here is Mackenzie Blackwood's back, but is he a volume starter? And I'd say it's too uncertain to know and make a call on that. So if you're looking for guaranteed volume, I'd still wait to see how the next couple games play out.
Yeah, and then if you're in a situation where you like have too many forwards and you need D, and it's like a deep enough league, maybe you're looking at like a Mario Ferraro who is hot. And I know I don't need you to come in and say it's unsustainable. I know that he's not going to continue to get 5 points every 5 games like he has in his past 5, but he plays like a lot of minutes. He sometimes has good peripherals. So maybe you could do worse than Mario Ferraro if you have an open D spot that you're like, if you're dropping a forward that plays 0 games to add a defenseman who will give you 3 games, like I think you should be aware that Mario Ferraro is on this streak, and maybe he could give you like 1 point in those 3 games along with some hits and blocks.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Okay. Trevor Zegras might be back soon. You brought that up, Brian. He didn't end up playing today. Anaheim stinks. They don't score many goals. I wonder if like Zegras being back might be some reason to be like, oh, well, maybe with Zegras back, Troy Terry gets going, McTavish gets going. Like, Terry's been okay, but like not that great. McTavish is really cold lately. I wouldn't bank on it, but yeah, maybe Zegras is good.
and like he seems to be really I mean, I'm sure the Ducks are being really cautious, but he's been out a long time, and Zegras is inching his way back to this return at a rate that makes me want, like, I don't know. I've seen so many return from injury trajectories over the years where, if a guy like seems really far and then is suddenly in the lineup, that's good usually. But if a guy is like really close for a long time, then that's I don't know. That's a bit of a flag for me. So I hope this really close uh, doesn't linger for too much longer. I don't mind him staying in my IR for another little while. The Ducks have an off night game on Sunday, so that might be the next time that Zegras is really relevant to you, assuming maybe he's eased back in based on the trajectory of his return again. So maybe Zegras can unlock some offense in Anaheim. Then again, maybe not.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd be betting on that, but he is definitely a good player. One day, like Brian, I definitely foresee us in a couple years, 3 years, we're gonna be like, the Ducks are so great. Like, grab which Duck of these 5 should you add? Because they're all so amazing. Like, I think it's gonna happen. Like, they have a really exciting prospect
Yeah.
pool, but
I
we've been
thought
waiting a while.
I thought we would have been closer to that day by now. A reminder for also whatever it's worth. Zegras has 7 points in 20 games this year, including just a single power play point. Yikes.
Yeah, might not be a savior for your season. Another potential injury, Aiden Hill was like left the last game for Vegas. The latest tweet is Cassidy says Hill came to the bench and said he wasn't 100%, so they made the switch, said he's getting tests done, and so they'll have to wait and see if he's going to be able to travel tomorrow morning. That came out like late last night, like late Saturday night. So I'm not sure. Like I haven't seen an update. So I don't know. In the meantime, Logan Thompson's already confirmed for the Monday game. So if Thompson is out there, I think it's like a slam dunk. Like just grab him to get the Monday game, and then who knows? Maybe you'll get more games if Hill is injured. And if Hill comes back, then you could always drop Logan Thompson. But yeah, and also by the way, Pietrangelo has been hurt lately for Vegas. And I don't think like Shea Theodore needed that. Like Shea Theodore's been incredible since he came back, and like kind of maybe quietly, but he's just on this incredible run and is playing like one of the top defensemen in the league, like offensively for like just assists every single game. And then also, I think I said this also on a recent show, like Jack Eichel is just like incredible. And I feel like also people aren't talking about him as much. Like I'm a little bit surprised that Eichel's not getting and maybe I'm just not paying attention in the right places, but I wonder if Eichel will be someone that you'll be able to sneak with like a late second round pick or something, or maybe even early second round pick next year. And he's just like, 8-7 shots a game, scoring all the time. Like he's insane. But yeah, that's the latest out of Vegas.
Yeah, nice little summary. I guess you've got Michael, like if you're looking for a Monday streamer and it's not too late by the time you listen to this, you've got Nicolas Roy, who still isn't doing a whole lot, but he has an assist in 2 straight games and throws some hits every so often. You've got Anthony Mantha, who's playing on a nowhere line with William Karlsson and Dorofeyev, and I actually wish I didn't mention him. But like, there's a little bit of peripheral floor there. Shams' favorite, Keegan Colasar. Oh, I hope I'm not blowing up his spot. Shams, we can edit that out if you need us to. Oh no, do we do that?
No.
Okay. We would never. Has a nice peripherals floor too. And then Michael Amadio was up playing with Eichel. So he's done absolutely nothing for 7 games. And so that's a real shot in the dark that you can take. He's still, even while Amadio's playing with Eichel, he's playing like 10 or 11 minutes a night. But yeah, I'll be really curious to see, like my curiosity, I happen to add Logan Thompson onto my roster, and I'm interested to see how Vegas handles the back-to-back on Monday, Tuesday, and whether they play him twice or just once, because I'm not sure they want their third stringer in when they have they've got Vegas. Nope. I'm not sure they want their third stringer in when they are fighting and clawing their way into the playoffs right now. They're 4 points up on St. Louis with a game in hand. So I think they're sitting in a decent position, but you play your third stringer, you get a bad loss, and who knows what happens next. So I would, that's something I'm watching for this week.
Yeah, Shams let us know here in the chat that Yuri Patera was called up for Vegas. So that's the third stringer Brian's talking about. And maybe, yeah, I definitely wouldn't be surprised to just see Thompson play both the Monday and the Tuesday. So could be good, could be bad though, because that Tuesday is against Nashville. And like Nashville's been so good lately. Like Forsberg, Nyquist, O'Reilly, but especially Forsberg and Nyquist, like just continue to just scorch. Nyquist is like someone who I think I mentioned before is like one of my wingers. Like he's not like if I said that he's fringe. He's not for me. Like I think Nyquist has to play in my lineup
You got to
because he
hold him.
just not only
And
hold but like play. Yeah.
yeah, I know we're not just because he's defense. You maybe not thinking, but Roman Josi continues
Jeez.
to just go wild too, like Nashville.
They
I'd
they could be,
be
and also because Brian also UC Saros has been
yeah.
like the top goalie lately. So Nashville's scary. I think going into the
Look
playoffs for
out.
sure.
Like there could be they could be Vancouver, Colorado, or Dallas's opponent at the moment. Those seem that like they're most likely first round, and I would not want to run into them in the
Yeah, for sure.
playoffs. Yeah,
I mean, I also wouldn't want to run into Colorado. I think Colorado is looking really like since Nichushkin's come back, they are a scary team for sure. But yeah, that would be a fun series, Colorado against Nashville. But I think Nashville's probably hoping they could run into Dallas there if they have the choice. No offense to Dallas, of course. All right, what do we got here? I still have some more injuries and outjuries here. I guess in terms of injuries, so Mitch Marner is still out for the Leafs. Also, Samsonov left the game. Looks like the latest quote from Sheldon Keefe is that he's fine, so maybe that's nothing to worry about. Though today, well, it was a back-to-back, so yeah, we'll play today. How did it go? Anyways, I think this game between the Leafs and the Canes is over at this point. Oh, Carolina won, but only 2-1, so can't blame the goalie. But where's the Leafs? I guess Frederick Anderson. Kudos to him on a big 32 save win over the Leafs.
Joseph Woll stopped 41 of 43.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so yeah, I think assuming Samsonov's healthy, I think they're just going to continue to alternate, I'd imagine. I think there was even a tweet, like, if not alternate, they're going to probably split the starts rest of the season, so that probably answers that. There's a lot of players on the Leafs that are very interesting lately. We brought up Liljegren last week. He continues to do really well. He's had a really good week lately. He's been playing on the top power play. I'm talking about the defenseman Liljegren playing on the top power play over Morgan Riley. Who knows if/when Marner comes back, if they switch back, it might have to do with handedness and whatever. But it doesn't look like it doesn't look like Marner's coming back anytime soon. So I'm definitely interested in Liljegren because he also has been great for the peripherals. Like even today, no points, but he had 4 shots, 3 hits, 1 block. He was +1, so maybe he could have gotten a point. He was on the ice for the one lone Leafs goal scored by Nick Robertson. So yeah, he's definitely someone I would be excited to have. I know last week, Brian, we were talking about Liljegren versus Jake McCabe. I think both were good in the end, but probably you were right that Liljegren was the more exciting guy to roster. I ended up having both on my team this past week, and I'll have them both for next week. So I'm happy either way with that comparison. And then just for completion, Nylander is incredible. He's on a goal streak right now. Matthews I guess not anymore after today's game. I prepped this before today's game. Matthews and Tavares both going insane. And Bobby McMahon continues to do really well. And not in the bottom 6, like in today's game against Carolina. Let me just bring up the lines quickly. And yeah, they were rolling with McMahon, with Nylander and Tavares. And I'm into McMahon. Like I know, like all season we've been talking about, Matthew Nyes, Max Domi, Bertuzzi, and like Domi and Bertuzzi have been good. Like Nyes has been cold lately, but I think Bobby McMahon is now to me, like maybe the 5th forward that you want on the Leafs. He came off a really big 2-goal, 1-assist game against Edmonton. Nothing today, but I'm excited about Bobby McMahon. I think he'd be a good stream if you could fit him into your lineup. Obviously not next week, maybe next year.
Yeah, so Bobby McMahon, before when we cautioned like not to get too attached, it was because he wasn't in the top 6. But it looks like Matthew Nyes has ceded his spot to Bobby McMahon, who is consistently he's in his last I keep looking down the list. In his last 15 games, he has 2 or more shots in 14 of those, and 3 or more shots and 4 or more shots in several as well. So that's some good stuff to see, especially with some really quality line mates in Tavares and Nylander, and Max Domi and Tyler Bertuzzi also. Worth. It's not like the Leafs have a schedule that makes them like, I've got to get these guys for an extra game, but at least to have on your watch list in case they might be towards the top of your free agency pile, depending on how deep your league is. And Liljegren. Elon, I think we can definitely call that was a great. I felt good about that one. Not only was he pointing, like Liljegren's on a nice little run now, but every game he filled the peripherals like at least one way. Like he had no shots against Washington and Edmonton, but he had 11 blocks combined and 4 hits and 3 points. So a nice Liljegren's doing great work, and very little of that production's coming on the power play, despite being on the power play. So we'll see if he can keep that rolling for as long as Marner is out. And Gosh, Marner being out in one of my leagues is just killing me. Blah.
Sorry, pal. Hey, but just to say, Jake McCabe, like I said, a guy you can rely on to help you move. He had 8 hits and 4 blocks on Saturday against Edmonton, so he
We
was
love
also
all
helping
the
you out.
Leafs defensemen. They're
All of
so
them.
good. All those guys.
You know who
We
I
love.
don't love? Simon Benoit, who I added in my dynasty, and I think I complained about my
I
like
think we've heard about
heartbreaking
this.
loss. Got benched a bunch of games. Like if he would have just played one extra game in that semifinal matchup of mine, I would have won the matchup with all those hits he gets when he plays. Why did the Leafs have to trade for like Lyubushkin? Just play Simon Benoit. Oh wow, we need to upgrade Benoit to Lyubushkin. We need a different former Ducks defenseman. Get out of here. Okay, so Brian, let's take a break and we'll go through some more injuries and outjuries. I got some hot and cold streaks. We'll see how much we could fit in around a half hour. So we'll be back in just a sec. Welcome back to Keeping Karlsson. So Brian, I saw some news that just came out today that Braden Point and Victor Hedman are hurt. So that's not good. I don't think we have updates there beyond just the latest tweets were just with Hedman Point unavailable tonight or no, okay, that was it. Okay, so just Victor Hedman and Braden Point are both out of the Tampa lineup tonight in Anaheim with lower body injuries. We don't have a sense if this is just a one-day thing or a long-term thing. The top power play today, for whatever it's worth, was Darren Radish took over for Hedman as the defenseman, which is interesting. And then Hagel and Nick Paul were on the top power play with Stamkos and Kucherov. So not Duclair. Kind of interesting. Anyways, maybe it's nothing to like think about too much just because we don't know how serious these injuries are. But if like Point is out a while and then Duclair's off the top power play, that obviously takes a lot of shine off of Duclair, who's looking fantastic when he was playing with Kucherov and Point at even strength and on the power play. But yeah, I don't really know what to say here. Like I was gonna drool at some point over Kucherov and Point and Stamkos and the amazing runs they're on. I guess this overshadows that a little bit, but I'm sure Tampa is also just playing things pretty safe because they're hoping to go on a playoff run here.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Like you've got to be they need to be careful and I think it's reasonable, but they can't be like too careful. Like they're in a wild card spot right now.
Yeah, no, true.
And I think a like a locked in top 3 spot is out of reach for them. So they're going to try and keep staving off Washington and Detroit and I think they should be able to. But I don't know if I were
Maybe
them.
not
I
without
wouldn't.
Hedman and Point.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't start resting yet. Is what I'll say. So hopefully they're okay. And I think the note on Duclair is interesting because that puts him into the edge case category too of whether to hold him or not if he's been bumped off that top power play. But gosh, Tampa changes that so often, so it's hard to say.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's go to one of those teams that are chasing Tampa. So Tom Wilson got himself suspended again. Like very frustrating, especially if you're in a Yahoo league or though I think Yahoo like messed up and like gave him an O even though it should be suspended, so you were able to stash him. I don't know if that's been updated or not. I guess I can check. But anyways, that was such a dumb play. Also, Wilson didn't even like it was just nothing. He just like smashed a guy in the face with his stick. I think it was like a mistake, but kind of not. Like he was just being reckless. But anyways, so was it 6-game suspension? So he's out for a lot of us for the rest of our playoffs, and potentially like I have him in a keeper league, like this keeper dynasty where we can't stash him in IR. It's a Fantrax league, and the setting hasn't been set where you can stash suspended players. So I'm just like a player short, and we probably can't drop the guy because he's still useful in a dynasty league. Frustrating. That's Tom Wilson for you. I guess you shouldn't have him on your team in the first place. Anyways, this was a week, like a lot of people had been eyeballing like a long time in advance. This like great 4 off day game week, or at least 3 off day game, depending on if you were able to fit today for Washington. And a lot of these guys came through, right? Like Ovechkin came through big time in this critical week for anyone who was holding on to him or traded for him when they saw the playoff schedule. Dylan Strome was great. Sonny Milano out of nowhere. I had him in this one of these leagues, and I dropped him right before he had this hat trick, which is very frustrating. We talked about McMichael last week, and he's on a hot streak, so he's someone that we were correct in recommending people grab. So, yeah, now it's over. Like now next week, Washington just has that boring schedule, but then they do have a good schedule in the following week. So, Brian, I wonder if one of these how does someone like a Dylan Strome or a TJ Oshie, like maybe those are two different people, but do you hold these caps, or now is it a point where with a bad schedule this week, everyone except for Ovechkin is potentially droppable?
I think everyone except for Ovechkin is potentially droppable. I'm not holding anyone. Like Oshie came off IR and like I promptly dropped him because I'm not moving you
Oh,
into my lineup and I don't want you to lock things for me to do
hey,
anything
2
else.
assists today.
Yeah. But like he's not cracking my lineup. Like he's done so little otherwise. And we talked about it. Like there is upside. He's on the top power play, but and I guess I'm just double checking those lines today. He's top line, top power play. So he fits the bill, but he's taken like one shot in 8 of his last 9 games. I don't love that. And I guess Dylan Strome would actually be the someone who I would keep through this. Not to say drop him. Strome playing with Protas and Miroshnichenko at even strength, but still on the top power play. And Strome is currently on today he extended his point streak to 4 games. So yeah, I'm not dropping him.
Yeah, well, I'm not dropping him because I need a center. Like I said before, definitely I'm dropping Kuznetsov before Dylan Strome. That's my unique dumb situation I'm in. Okay, let's get some hot and cold streaks to finish this off. Carolina, I got to mention Jake Gensel has had such an incredible start to his tenure on Carolina, which might be short, maybe not, depends how long the playoffs go. I guess this guy's going to make so much money in this offseason. He's going to be the really exciting UFA that everyone's going to be watching. I wonder, he's already 29 years old. I still remember when Gensel just came up. I guess he was kind of older when he first came up for Pittsburgh. So, yeah, it's surprising he's already 29. He's probably going to get like a 7-year deal and be locked in until he's like 36 years old, but that'll probably be one of those deals where the team is just banking on just getting the value in the first few years before he tails off. Aho's been great. Yeah, we've talked about Kuznetsov, so I guess that's kind of the Carol. I guess here's the question, which Brian, I ask you every year, and you always give the same answer. But Jacob Slavin is on one of his hot streaks, so. But you always just say that you never believe in Jacob Slavin hot streaks, and I assume this is the same. He had 4 points in 4 games going into today. Today against Toronto, 4 shots and a block, but no points. I assume unless you're like desperate for D, you're not too excited about Jacob Slavin's hot streak.
You got it.
Okay. Next up, we can go to. Let's go to the Vancouver. They actually have a good schedule next week. They're one of the very few teams that has 2 off day games. And by few, I mean just them in Buffalo. They go Monday, Thursday, Sunday, and there might be some streamers. I talked about a matchup maximizer yesterday that you can go for here because the top line, or at least the Pettersson line, has been Pettersson with Connor Garland and Nils Hoglander. So those are both guys widely available all over. And with 2 off-day games, these might be the types of players you're dropping your Lekkonens and Ehlers for. Garland, and it's not like they're just in a good spot. They're doing well. Like Garland has 4 points now in his last 3 games. Nils Hoglander has himself had 2 goals in that last game yesterday against Calgary. So I'm not saying like I'm like over the moon for Hoglander and Garland, but with 2 off-day games and on top line and both producing, I think you got to grab them, right? If you need to add a couple games for a critical elimination matchup.
Yeah, I'd like. Well, that's it. Like, it's pretty rare to get a couple bonus games this week, and even if you hold your moves and you're in a limited move setting, there might not be a whole lot of churning you can actually do. So it's not hard to commit to a guy for Monday and Sunday. And Hoglander, you can get him Monday and then watch him, and if something tails off, you can just let go before the Sunday game. But if you can go grab him now, which I was, like I said, I waited too long. I delayed too long, but he would have been somebody that I had added if I was not beat to him by somebody else in my division.
Yeah. And also, I'll mention he's not doing anything lately, but Pew Suter in the last game at least was playing with Miller and Besser at even strength and also on the top power play with Pettersson, Besser, and JT Miller. Elias Lindholm not on the top power play. He was on PP2 and got a lot less time. So Pew Suter might fall into a point or 2 in these off day games. I wouldn't bank on it, and that could change. But again, we're like really scraping here to try to get some extra games played. So he's someone that I would at least take a look at. And also, Brian, let me give you a hot streak and a cold streak on Vancouver. Casey DeSmith, kudos to him with Demko out. DeSmith has really done well, and he wasn't looking so good like before Demko got hurt, and maybe just some of these goalies just kind of need to get into a rhythm here, and it's hard to do that as a backup. So yeah, DeSmith on a nice little run, and also on the cold streak side, Philip Hronik pointless in 8 games now. So becoming a pretty tough hold. Maybe you have to hold for next week if you still have him just because of these off day games. But when you get into your finals, once you have options, Hronik may be someone that you let go now that he's on such a cold streak. He's not on the top power play. I don't see a huge reason to hold on.
Yeah, just to start with DeSmith, who even after this run, where he's been reasonably good, his quality start percentage is still like it's fine. It's not as bad as it has been the rest of his career, so that's a start. But still just an 899 goalie. But like we're very much at the point where it's what have you done for me lately? And if you like what DeSmith has done lately and Demko remains out, then DeSmith, like Vancouver's good. Vancouver's really good. I want their starter. I'll aim for the win with DeSmith. And then yeah, Hronek is now on a 52-point pace, which is just 2 points higher than he paced for last year in Detroit. So like all the early season hype that we had around him, like we were really excited. But he's been so quiet for so long now that I can't blame you for wanting to lose him if he's not helping you much. He's still hitting. Like if that's enough to wait and see if the points come back, then you can do that. He's still playing a ton of minutes, so I would imagine just by virtue of being on the ice as often as he is, he's going to luck into a few more points than he has as of late. But there's not a whole lot of shots from Hronek, not a whole lot of blocks. So hits and minutes are what you're looking at and saying those are the reasons I'm going to hold on to Hronek if you're going to hold on. But he's not a must hold at this point.
Yeah. And by the way, when I was telling you those lines for Vancouver, that was in their last game against Calgary. I'm seeing there were practice lines today. Lindholm wasn't at the practice. Shams just pointed this out to me. So I don't know how much you want to read into it, but actually now it was Phil Giuseppe playing with Miller and Besser. And then Suter was on another line in the bottom six. Maybe still top power play. I don't know. Anyways, I definitely don't like take away that I'm saying go out and get few Suter. I'm just saying if you want to get a Canuck that can give you 2 off day games, maybe he is an option. But okay, so moving along here, Brian, let's go to Boston here. I've got a guy that I hadn't heard of before like a week ago. Who the heck is this Justin Brazeau? Kind of remind. Did you ever watch Only Murders in the Building?
No.
Yeah. Oh, okay. The main character is played Brazos. Oh, he always brings it up. Anyways, that's what I first thought when I saw this name. But yeah, Brazeau has himself 5 points in his last 3 games. It's 4 goals and 1 assist in his last 3 games. He had a 6-shot game against Ottawa. He had a 4-shot game against the Rangers. I'm seeing he's been getting some second power play time. This is a 26-year-old that I had never heard of. He's only played 15 games this season, and this is his first NHL action of his career. Is this a person? Is this someone we should know and remember? Who is he? Justin Brazeau.
I'm actually looking up. He's from New Liskeard, Ontario, and I'm deep.
I haven't heard of that place either. I haven't heard anything about this guy.
So it's on the eastern, sort of on the northeastern-ish border between Ontario and Quebec, and actually no longer, like, still kind of exists, but it was amalgamated with Haileybury and Diamond to form Temiskaming Shores. And I'm just trying to see if there's any note of that. That was back in 2004 when Justin Brazeau was just 6 years old. And there's your NHL geography update. I want to find out more if there is. Anyway, I'll share. I'll prepare a slideshow on Temiskaming if that's helpful for anyone at some point. But as for Brazeau himself, like, patron perk, there's not even like, I like to look at like these places that I've never heard of to see like notable residents. He might be
Justin Brazeau.
He might be it. Like there is.
Do you think like every Bruins game they're all getting together at the local bar and watching and like cheering him on? Maybe that'd be fun.
But you want to know a fun fact that I've learned from Wikipedia is the modern day Montreal Canadiens started in Haileybury, one of the 3 townships that amalgamated into Temiskaming Shores.
That is a fun fact.
They were known to Montreal. They were the Haileybury Hockey Club. And they were taken over and moved by a Montreal organization, Club Antique Canadien. And then they became the Montreal Canadiens. But Brazeau, for what it's worth, he's not been in New Liskeard his whole life. He actually, though undrafted, he spent a lot of time in the Toronto farm system, or not a ton of time, but the majority of his professional time up until joining the Boston system with Providence of the AHL back in 21-22. He actually started with Maine, the Mariners of the ECHL, where he was productive. He's been pretty productive, Brazeau, in the AHL in the stints he's been there, especially over the last couple of years with Providence. About 120 games, he has about 85 points, and I'm just ballparking those numbers while I do this on the fly. He's big with 6'5", 245. He's 26 years old. And I think I mentioned he's undrafted already. So, Elon, I have no further context about, what to really expect from Brazeau. Like Tuesday, like if you can get an extra game from him on Wednesday, that's cool. Like one thing that strikes me about Brazeau though is he's doing this with like no deployment. He's on like the third line and second power play, but he has 4 goals on 11 shots in his last 3 games, including like he had back-to-back games, like 6 shots, 4 shots. And that was in 11 and 13 and a half minutes respectively. So he's still playing bottom 6 minutes. He's still seeing very little power play deployment. But I mean, if the pickings are slim, Brazeau is a guy.
Yeah, maybe for those dynasty listeners, and yes, I did add him in my dynasty league when I saw this happening. So we'll see if I get any returns from him next year. Already eliminated this year, unfortunately. Okay, so next, but now that we're on Boston, though, the main story here, of course, is Charlie McAvoy and his insane cold streak. I don't even think we've talked about this on the show because I feel like at first I was like, it was like, okay, he's cold for 4 games, not noteworthy. Obviously, it's nothing. Then probably like the next time I saw, he's been cold for 7. Maybe that's worth bringing up. But I'm sure as soon as I do, he'll just get a point, and it'll be a waste of time. Now we're 10 points without a point. 10 games without a point for Charlie McAvoy. So I do have to bring it up. I still like feel like, how can you be worried? Like he's still the top power play, like gets a ton of minutes for Boston. Like, but Brian, how's this happening? Like, how is he not getting any? It's not like Boston's not scoring goals.
Oh, in the interest of just before I even answer that, I'm sorry, but like to continue the hockey trivia, I don't know. Like sometimes I mention how like Hockey Reference includes player nicknames on their pages.
Mm-hmm.
Charlie McAvoy's nicknames too. Like usually it's just like the guy's last name with a Y at the end, like Kemp's
Mackey
or Lindy for the Washington Goldies. McAvoy, Chucky Bright Lights, and Bonafide Stallion. Like, I don't know how these find their way onto the hot. Like, who gathers that and puts
Maybe
it on?
a player just was talking about him. I mean, we have a lot of Bruins listeners. Patty, I think that I saw that. Andy was in the chat here earlier. So let us know what was it? Chucky Bright? No, what were they
Chucky
again?
Bright Lights and Bonafide Stallion.
Bonafide Stallion. Yeah, give us the history there. But Brian, we got to get to some hockey talk here as we finish off this show. McAvoy, what's going on?
Not a whole heck of a lot. That's the like. It's not like the power play is terribly cold. Like they're not converting at a crazy rate, but still, 3 for their last 16, going back 6 games. That's like almost a 20% conversion rate, which isn't ideal, but it's also not so bad. Like Elon, I'm not seeing. I do. The only thing that I wonder about, but I can't verify this, and this is why we need a beat writer on the road. But he's really stopped doing a whole lot of the things that he's been doing for most of the season. Like McAvoy, the hits have mostly dried up, not completely, but mostly. McAvoy's shots have dried up. He has just 4 shots. Actually, I'm going to go 5 shots in his last 8 games. And this seems to have started like a week or 2 ago. And I'm just going back to see where Boston is in the standings and whether they're playing for anything or not. I guess they're playing for top seed, which means the right to play Washington or Detroit instead of Tampa, which I guess is worth it, right? I guess it's where you want to be. I don't know, Elon. Like, I guess I'm going to just raise my, like, is he injured kind of radar.
Right.
And see if that has anything to do with it. He's still playing big minutes, but he's not throwing his buddy. He's not throwing the puck, and he's certainly not getting any points. So it's been a rough ride on the Bonafide Stallion.
Yeah, all I'll say is, like, if I had him, I would just keep playing him and just assume it's fine until I hear something differently, right? Like, you didn't draft a guy so high to drop or like consider benching in a critical playoff matchup when he's cold like this. But that's me. Maybe I'll ride my person even if they end up killing me. Next up, Brian. Okay, let me finally throw to end the show. I got a couple centers on my mind. You know this is coming because I need to decide if I'm going to drop Kuznetsov for one of these guys or if I'm just going to hold Kuznetsov. So these are like, I want to know a couple center hot streaks that are these interesting enough to swap out Kuznetsov for, even though I'm not getting any games played. I'm going to start with the guy we did talk about last week, but it's continued. Morgan Frost over in Philly. is playing on the top line with Tippett and Konechny, who are both doing great. Also on the top power play with Konechny, Tippett, Farabee, and Cam York lately. And of course, Philly changes those things often, but Frost has been there now for a while. And I know I was all like Tyson Forrester a while back, and then like that ended. And I know that that could end also for Frost, but at this point, we're at 8 points in Frost's last 7 games. Incredible deployment. I might drop it. I might use, because again, it's not only like Frost versus Kuznetsov. It's like I'm using up a move to do that. One of my 4 valuable moves. Is it worth it to get Morgan Frost in there over Kuznetsov?
I think so, but I think that might say more about Kuznetsov than it does about Frost. Like Kuznetsov seems like really likely to be invaluable, but this isn't to take anything away from Frost, who just had a 6-game point streak snapped. Shots are coming pretty regularly. So Elon, I'd say that's worth it. Like I mentioned earlier, I used a move swapping out Sharon Govich for Slavkovsky, and that was worth it as an upgrade for me. And I'd say that this seems like at least a similar, if not an even bigger upgrade from Kuznetsov to Frost.
All right, so Frost is looking good. Slavkovsky, by the way, Brian, it's 4-0 Montreal right now. No points for Slavkovsky. So,
but how's he been doing in all the games before this?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm just hoping that this is like he's getting his bad game out of the system.
Yeah.
And then he'll be ready for you next week. By the way, Phil Grubauer, this is Montreal versus Seattle. This is live scoreboard watching here. Grubauer was in net for 4 goals against on 6 shots. And
he's
then got
back,
pulled.
baby.
333 save percentage for Grubauer. And now Decord is, of course, in the net. And he's so far had 2 shots against, and he's saved them both. So we'll see how that turns out for this crazy Seattle goaltending situation. I think at the end of the day, we said it last week. It was like, yeah, Grubauer is hot, but he's Grubauer. It's not, and unfortunately, it's just like very predictable that this was not going to be a long-term thing of Grubauer being good. It's been too long since he's been able to continue with any consistency. By the way, speaking of Montreal, Mike Matheson is on a cold streak, eh? He's now, I think this will be his 5th game. I mean, it's only 1 period over, but he's pointless so far. Also on these 4 goals, that'll be his 5th game without a point if he doesn't do something. Matheson, though, is +4 today. I'm just going to say it right now before I throw it to you. I feel similarly about him as I do about McAvoy. Like if he's playing big minutes, if he's on the top power play, like +4 today, like Montreal scored 4 goals with him on the ice. Usually he'd get a point, right? I'd imagine this is just bad luck.
This just seems like bad luck. Yeah.
Okay. All right. One more center to throw at you and then we'll end the show. On Chicago, which is all like right away. It's like, uh-oh. But okay, hear me out. So Connor Bedard, no, he's not available, unfortunately. But there's another guy who has center eligibility who's looking good lately, and that is Ryan Donato, who's also, he's like not even getting such great deployment, but you can't ignore the numbers, which are now, like he had a goal and 2 assists in that last game against San Jose. He's scored 4 goals in his past 7 games. He's taken a lot of shots, like all the stuff we like to see. Any interest in Ryan Donato, or it's like if you're not playing with Bedard, then I don't care?
No, I have interest, and it doesn't seem like he should be doing much. And really, with his minutes, it's amazing Donato is doing anything. Like he's playing like roughly on average 13 minutes a night, sometimes like 12, sometimes 14 and a half. But over this stretch where Donato's been productive, but I'm looking at the shots, Elon, and I'm seeing he's got 3 or more in 8 of his last 10. And again, with limited minutes. So, and like this is why Donato was actually on my radar. I drafted him with a late flyer, like at the start of the season. This is why Donato gets on our radars, because when he's on the ice, he just fires away if he's given the opportunity. I don't know that the points are going to keep coming, but as far as like the shot floor is nice. And he also tosses in some hits to help. And anytime he's shooting, there's a chance for points. So Donato is, I don't think I'd drop Kuznetsov for him. I think I'd put him below. I wouldn't burn a move to quote unquote upgrade or to make that swap. But I see the appeal in Ryan Donato.
All right. Well, I think I will agree with you there, but definitely someone to keep on your watch list maybe for that finals week when you have potentially the chance to get in more games. And then I guess I'll end quickly in Edmonton. Lewis wanted us to check in once again on Evander Kane, who continues to be as cold as he was last week when you said you're no longer interested in him. Is it he's still like taking some shots and nothing's going in? So Lewis was wondering if maybe he's just unlucky. What's your take? And also, I'll just mention quickly, congrats to Zach Hyman, just scored his 50th goal today. What a season for Zach Hyman. But yeah, what a non-season for Evander Kane. So what do you think? Is Evander Kane a drop at this point going into next week?
Yeah, he is. Especially like when Kane did have that time with McDavid and did absolutely nothing with it. I mean, like, hey, Evander Kane is the sort of player who you'll drop and he'll get a hat trick, and then you'll add and he'll do nothing for 14 games, and then you'll drop him and he'll get another hat trick, and that's what you're signing up for. But I don't see any real reason to be holding on to Evander Kane here. He's playing middling minutes, largely in the bottom six. There is like an okay, like I guess I did talk about Ryan Donato having a decent shot and hit floor, and Kane has the same, and with a couple more minutes and the potential for even greater deployment than that. But if it like, I think all I need to say or to clarify is that if you're adding Evander Kane, like you're not adding Evander Kane, you're adding like this version of Evander Kane. So just
Right.
adjust for name what you assume the marquee name value to be.
How many times has like Evander Kane and Patrick Kane flipped in like who's the better Kane to roster over the past few seasons? I feel like at least like
Do you think?
3 or 4 times.
Yeah. Well, like Evander
Anyway,
Kane.
a stupid question.
Yeah, okay, all right. I thought you were just gonna say like how often has Evander Kane's own career trajectory just like spiked and like peak and valley, peak and valley, peak and valley. We're in a valley right now.
Yeah, I would definitely take Patrick Kane in the battle of the Canes.
Likewise, Elon, and that's why people listen.
But next year in drafts, maybe it's an interesting question because again, Patrick Kane's getting up there. But I would probably still go Patrick Kane. But okay, Brian, with that, we'll have to see where Patrick Kane goes anyways in free agency. But this has been a blast, just like I anticipated when I said I was stoked for this episode an hour and 40 minutes ago. Thanks so much for hanging out with me, Brian, and of course the listeners. Thank you so much for listening. It really does mean a lot. We've been doing this show for a long time. We know you have other fantasy hockey podcasts you could listen to, but we're the one who's been here the longest. But obviously that also does not mean that we should be guaranteed listeners. So yeah, we appreciate you and want to thank you for sticking with us for another season. Hopefully we've given you some good advice here that will help you in your fantasy playoffs. And keep in mind, even if you're eliminated and this was what you were planning to be your last episode, and then you're going to bow out, like we're going to keep coming up with content like from now all through the summer, right, to help prepare you for next season and hopefully in an entertaining way. So please stay subscribed to Keeping Karlsson. We also have a lot of other great content. I dropped that matchup maximizer yesterday, looking into all the players who have, or all the teams I should say, that have at least one off day game next week. And I brought up some players on each of those teams that are on hot streaks that you may want to consider. Also, there was a couple great short shifts episodes. We're going to have more short shifts coming up every Wednesday morning and Friday morning. A little bite-sized episode to give you the latest from the last couple of days. And yeah, then Brian and I will be back with another mega show next week. So stay subscribed to see all of that. And if you want to support us, never too late to become a patron of Keeping Karlsson. And thanks so much again to all the patrons who supported us all throughout the year. We're having a lot of fun over in our Discord. So you could join that, keepingkarlsson.com/patron. And Brian, I believe we do owe the patrons a patron cast. Probably won't be next week, but probably the week after that. So we'll get that scheduled and in the calendar ASAP. But with that, Brian, let's cue the outro music. Why don't you go ahead and read us the credits and take us out of here?
All right. This episode of the Keep Me Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast was presented by Dauber Hockey and powered by our patrons who continue to thank you to all of those. And good luck, by the way, in the cupful, kkupfl.com, if you want to see how things are going. We probably, next week, will give a, do you think, I wonder if I can give a quick tier 1 update?
I mean, you can't not now with that tease.
Okay. So a really incredible thing.
Wait, let me stop the out. People are gonna be wondering. I now stopped the outro music.
Okay,
so
we should have started with this. We're like something we need to get better at. But one incredible storyline is that Ryan, our defending champ, finished at the top of the regular season table, 16-6 record. That's
Oh my
crazy to
God.
get 16 wins in tier 1, also with everyone coming for you as the defending champ. And then you might say, oh yeah, maybe schedule luck. No, not schedule luck. Ryan had the second highest points for out of any tier 1 competitor, and he was like one more shot from anyone on his team, and he would have had the top points for. Like, he was just 45 hundredths of a point behind Jordan. Congrats, Jordan, who also made the playoffs, but with 13 wins in the same points for total, which is crazy. That explains some of the head-to-head luck that Elon's been railing about all season long.
Okay.
But yeah, it looks like our semifinals are set. Oh gosh, I hate that I don't have names. Who's Bell City? Is that Chris?
Right. Okay.
No, let me just come on.
Okay,
It's
so give me a
okay.
minute then. I have to look it up.
I'm
I have
I'm
to log
looking.
into the tier 1 commish account.
I'm looking too.
Okay, we'll see who's that.
See who wins.
Let's see who. Okay, log.
Chris is
tier
Rat
1.
City. Who's Bell City?
Why are there 2 cities?
And neither one is actually a city.
Okay, am I accepting the cookies? All right. Okay, now I'm able to.
Chris. It says, oh, Chris is Rat City, says Sam.
Okay, Bell City Beauties
Is that Nimmer?
Nolan.
Nolan. All right.
So edit point.
Okay. Looking ahead to the semifinals, we had no upsets in the first round of the Tier 1 Sweden playoffs. We had Nolan's Bell City Beauties with 15 wins in the regular season, takes out PJ's Medal of Connor, good season. And then Nolan, look out, Elon. He was at 300-plus points this week, just like you.
I mean, there's a big difference between his 300. What does he have? 302?
0.85.
Let's see what I have right now. 326 right now. Still going.
Okay.
But I mean,
Yeah. Okay.
doesn't matter from my tier 3 constellation playoffs.
and then we've got Jordan Sasquatch Snipers just barely gonna squeak by Bedsy's 5th place Pigeons. Only one win difference between the 4th and 5th seed here, but it looks like it's going to be 1st seed Ryan against 4th seed Jordan. So the 2 top points 4 teams clashing next week, and then we'll have Chris and Nolan going at it. Chris and Nolan both first time in Tier 1 too. So we've got 2 first-time semifinalists. We've got 1 defending champ in the semifinals, and we've got Jordan, who is one of the best to never win it. And this is at least his 2nd year. Maybe I don't want to out myself as forgetting, but I'll look up his player card when we're done recording. So that's thanks to our patrons who are supporting the show, playing in the cupful, crushing it, and making Tier 1 legit the best fantasy hockey thing in the world, and the cupful overall.
Let's put that on the website.
I
Best
should.
fantasy hockey thing in the world.
Thanks also to our super supporters: Lucas, Top Cheese, Roman, Don, Michael, Jordan, Brian, Patrick, Aaron, Philip, Ivan, Sammy, Andrea, Zach, Tom, Ryan, David, Dusty, Ricard, Patty. Thank you all so much for your extra little bit of support. Thanks to Kevin A. Bear, our cupful coordinator, for shepherding us through the end of this fantastic cupful season 9. And hey, we're already starting to talk about season 10, but more on that a lot later. Elon and Shams, thank you for all you're doing at GameDayTweets.com. Thank you to Shams and Lewis and Jeremy and Derek for all the work on short shifts and keeping the content coming through the week. Logo art by BrandonWeeb.com. Outro music by Pat Roach. This episode was researched with help from Dauber Hockey, Frozen Tools, Dauber Prospects, Natural Stat Trick, Evolving Hockey, Cap Friendly, The Athletic, HockeyGoldies.org, Hockey Reference, Hockey Viz, Hockey Database, Elite Prospects, and Yahoo.
All right, great job as always, Brian. And I definitely look forward to doing this all again with you in a week. What should we all be keeping in our minds as we await that epic show to come?
Well, just keep doing all you can do to make sure that fantasy hockey is for everyone, like Chris did in Tier 1 when he invited Sam in the chat to be the best man at his wedding. Isn't that amazing? These connections. It's beautiful.
Small world.
And they met on our Discord server. No, I'm joking. I have no idea.
It's possible.
Thanks everyone for listening.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, great show. I mean, I'm not to brag. I mean, it was a good show, but I meant more like Brian, like great show. Like Brian, you did a great job. I'll leave it to the others to tell me if I did a good job.
Sam clarifies middle school.
Okay, similar, same thing. All right, thanks everyone.
All right.
See you later. Bye, pal.
Bye. Thanks, Sam, Shams, and there's someone, Andy, in the chat.
Yeah, awesome crew.
Okay,
I appreciate
Elon
it.
really has to run.
No. Well, I just want. Okay, but Brian, don't leave just yet.
Okay.
Okay. Bye.
Okay, bye.
End stream.